Well, greetings and salutations to the 310 tribe, wherever you may be this fine evening. And if you guys can hear me and see me, give me a thumbs up. Should be a little bit of a delay. Not yet, not yet. Oh, there we go. All right. We are cooking with Crisco. Well, I guess we shouldn't cook with Crisco anymore. That's a seed oil, right?
That's right. Just cook with butter.
With tallow or butter.
Yeah.
Got Shamrock in the house. Hey, Shamrock. Sandra Corsi, Brandy Coolman, Kelly, Just Vicky, Melissa G, Reef Paparazzi, Ida Gonzalez, Hammer Time, Coco, Catalin. Good to see everybody here tonight. Marine Mom, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And to everybody else, it's so good to be on here with you guys. Sorry for the delay right when we were getting on. Everything kind of just crashed. Um, And if I do drop off, I've given Joe here the permission to just keep talking about whatever he wants to talk about until I can come back on. And if all else fails, I have a backup channel ready to go. So just be ready to jump if this thing goes wonky on me again. So, Joe, how have you been, man?
Man, busy as ever, just blowing and going.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to start off each of these with a Bible reading, and I'm going to try and incorporate this as we keep going through as long as we're here and I'm doing Monday Night Lives, I'm going to keep reading scripture. So this is
Okay.
from Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall hold them in derision, and then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I have set my king on my holy hill of Zion, and I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son, today I've begotten you, and ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with the rod of iron, and you shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Now therefore be wise, O kings, be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way, and when his wrath is kindled but a little. And blessed are those who put their trust in him. And I was reading that, I just thought of the the sentiment that the number 47 just echoed a couple of days ago when he said, I hope I get to go to heaven. He's talking about all these peace deals and stuff he's doing, right?
Mm,
Now, I don't ascribe a lot of theological um, um, discernment from a guy like Donald Trump, but this thought is on his mind, right? He's definitely being influenced in a spiritual way by, he's being influenced by spiritual matters. It seems he's taken a keen interest in Israel. He recognizes the eternal, Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel. He, even though he has a kind of a heretic, I don't want to say kind of, she is a heretic, Paula White, as his spiritual White House advisor. Um, he does have other seemingly godly men around him at times, and so I don't know. It seems to me that he is trying to. I think he fears God in a way, but he's also kind of racked with his own hubris. So he's battling that his pride, his ego, and all this stuff that he's pitching because he's that consummate salesman, but yet at the same time in the back of his mind he's got one eye looking up at heaven, like am I doing the right thing here or something? I don't know. That's just my thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I mean, I look at him as the quintessential back row Baptist or the back row person in the back of the church, right? They're just there. They think that their works are going to get them somewhere, right? And that's the way that I view Donald Trump. I mean, he wants. It appears that he wants to do the right thing, and he thinks by doing the right thing, it's going to get him to heaven. And in reality, we know that that's not the way this works. I can appreciate the sentiment that he has and a lot of the things that he's done, but when he makes those kind of statements, it racks my brain, and I'm like, please get those like Paula White out of your circle of influence, and let's surround this guy with some sound theological teachers and preachers and people that could influence him in the right way.
Can you imagine instead of having Paula White, let's just say he had like Dr. Andy Woods up there?
Oh my goodness, we would. I mean, we exactly. I mean, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now if it was that easy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, so for everybody, we just kind of dove straight in, but here's my good friend Joe Hawkins from Prophecy Recon. Has excellent material. I posted stuff on my website. He's got his own two websites. He's got the Substack and then his regular channel. And then, or you don't have a YouTube channel yet, do you?
Yeah,
Or do you?
I do have a YouTube channel. I post the interviews that I do with JB Hickson, and we've done a few other small things. Nothing just individually yet. I'm working on launching a podcast here in the near future. I'm not quite sure how long that's going to be till I get it going. I primarily just write right now. And speaking of, I just finished two books. I should be getting the proofs of those in, I believe, this week. The first book is Pre-Rapture Reconnaissance, which me and you've discussed that in the past, where
Yeah.
I've identified 7 prophetic hot zones, and I go over those in the book, and I'm presenting them as a reconnaissance report to the reader. So it's going to be a very short, compact book where you could just get the information and be able to pass it on. And the other one is based off of a Substack series that I do called a Weekly Wake Up Devotion, and it's just going to be 52 devotions that you can do at the beginning of the week, and at the end of the week you just reflect on 3 questions. Very short, simple, not meant to replace your Bible study or meant to replace your Bible reading. It's just meant to supplement it. And we're a homeschool family, and we've done those kind of this you know 1 week type studies with our kids in the and that's kind of where I drew that inspiration from. So as I was doing those on my Substack, I was getting a lot of traction from it, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, I wish I had this in print form." So I decided to go ahead and do a whole book out of it, and so hopefully those 2 books will be released here in the next month or two.
And I have been really slacking on my writing. I have not written a whole lot lately. I've been kind of engulfed in getting these presentations ready for these conferences coming up. Speaking of, and I kind of glossed over at the beginning, a little bit of the house cleaning stuff. I've got coming up Sunday, Sunshine Church in New Mexico. So that'll be online, but it'll be, I think, 2 to 3 in the afternoon with Pastor Jason. And then Monday, I'll have Scott Townsend on my Monday Night Live. So next Monday will be Scott Townsend. And then again on the 19th and the 20th of September is going to be the Hope for Our Times conference in Rockwall, Texas. So I think Friday night, I think Friday I'm speaking, and then Friday night is the Shabbat dinner, and then Saturday is an all day affair as well. So I think it's just Friday and Saturday. And then right after that will be the Prophecy Watchers in Oklahoma City. And you said you're going to that one, right?
Yeah, I'll be there,
Okay.
just in attendance and hanging out with a few folks.
Well, look for me because I don't sell a whole. I don't really like to sell books and stuff because it's just me, and I don't want to be tied to a table the whole time. So I like to walk around and meet or talk to people and stuff. But I might have a table; it might be blank, but I'll just be sitting there hanging out, talking to people. So
Yeah,
definitely come by and uh, hang out with me.
it'll be a good
So
time.
and then I haven't been to the Florida one yet. So I've been really wanting to do the Branson Prophecy Watchers and then the Florida one. So maybe this coming year
And
I
let
can
me, let me
swing
tell
to
you a story
Florida,
about that real quick, if you
Orlando.
don't mind. Look,
You what?
I said, let me tell you a story about that. So the Branson one. So I wanted to go to the Branson one, and I was thinking that they were going to do it in Branson this year. So I was getting ready to get things planned out for our family vacation. And I'm like, you know what, we're going to go to Branson in December this year, and we'll just go by the Prophecy Watcher Conference while we're there. So I got onto the Prophecy Watch, and this was back, I don't know, 8 months ago. I got on the Prophecy Watcher website, and I went to their little message me area, and I just happened to type in, "Are you going to be having the Prophecy Watcher conference in Branson this year during December?" Well, they responded back really. was actually Bob Ulrich with Prophecy Watchers that responded back to me, and he's like, "No, we're going to do that next year, but we really hope to see you in Oklahoma." And then I was like, you know what? Bob Ulrich emails you back. I'm going to take my shot and just email him back some of my articles, right? So I emailed him back some of my articles, and that was how that whole situation started. And 3 out of the last 4 months, they've published magazines, so that was pretty cool. And so for anybody out there that wants to take a shot, don't be afraid to take a shot. Just that's what I did, and it worked out for me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I love that magazine. In fact, I bring always wherever I travel, I always bring some with me just to have, just to read. But yeah, Bob's a cool guy, man. I love hanging out with him, and I think he's probably got him and his support team has got the hardest jobs because they've got to put all that together every, what, 3 times a year, and putting a conference together is a lot of work.
It
That is
is.
a lot of work. I can't even imagine the amount of sweat equity they put into that every time they put one on. And it's designed to be seamless for you. You show up, you've already bought your ticket, you get your little placard, they've got your name, and then they've got the speakers. I mean, they've got it. I mean, it is so much to manage, especially with the number of speakers they bring in every year. But you can't beat the fellowship because you've got another 1,000 plus people there, all excited about the rapture. You're all hanging out with your, whoever you like to watch or listen to, and it's just a good time. I like to get there. I'll get there probably the night early, the Thursday night. And when I was in Colorado 2 years ago, three, I don't even know what year. I guess it was 3 years ago. It was the first time I spoke there in Colorado Springs, and I mean, I'm just standing in the lobby. It's Thursday before the conference, and I think Lee Brainerd comes up, and we start talking, and then Tommy Ice comes over, and Tommy's tall. I mean, I didn't realize how big he was. He's a big guy. Tommy came over, and then it's like all these like people that I've watched over the years just came up. We just all were all hanging out talking, and then moving on to different groups and stuff. It was the most surreal thing, probably the second most surreal thing in my life, because the first most surreal thing was getting to have lunch with Chuck Missler, and that was at a pre-trip conference. Oh, in fact, you know what? I think I got a photo of it. Let me see. A couple of years ago, and he came out of a briefing, and I was kind of just browsing the books, if I'm trying to remember correctly, and it was just me and him. Everybody else was still in the conference, listening to whoever was speaking there. Here it is. Let's see. How do I want to open this? Photos. Yeah. So, anyways, he just comes up and he's like, "Are you eating lunch yet?" I was like, "No." I was like, "You're going with me," and he just grabs him. We just go eat lunch. So that was just I didn't even know what to say at the time because I was just barely a new writer, and I think I probably showed this before. Let's see. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, back when I was young. That's the young me. I used to spike my hair like I thought it was cool or something. Anyways, that was surreal. But yeah, these conferences, they're just a good time, man. It's a good place to go recharge your batteries, your spiritual batteries. And we spend most of the year we spend just in islands unto ourselves. We're not really we're not going to a church that teaches it. We have probably very few friends that talk about it or are interested in it. So then you get to a place like that, and everybody's talking about it. Everybody's jazzed and pumped, and the energy levels usually pretty high. So I don't know. I think they're a good time. I think they're necessary, especially as crazy as this world's gotten.
Well, I
So,
agree. Yeah, I agree
anyways,
with you.
I'd just say if anybody's there, just if you see me, man, just come up and start talking to me. Like I'll, that's what those events are there for. I mean, they're designed for us to go up, and not just me, but JB Hickson or whoever's speaking that at that time. So, but so yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And I definitely want to do the Florida one if they do it again. I don't know, but then we got Mississippi coming up in May, Flowood, Mississippi, and that is at the Sheraton in Flowood, and that is an amazing venue. First of all, secondly, this lineup, Tom Hughes and Alex Newman, I would go just for those two guys, and then Chris Gaucher and his wife put on an amazing event there. Music's good, the food's good. I mean, it's just a really cool environment. So that's also one of those things that I'd highly encourage people. If you're in the area of Flowood, Mississippi, I think that's kind of South Central. Is
Yeah,
that
it's
right?
it's over there. It's near Jackson. Yeah, near to the central part of the state. Yep. Yeah, I'll be there. Looking forward to it. I think the first year that you were there, I was at another conference, so I didn't get out to it that time. But I was there last year, and I'll be there this upcoming event.
Yeah, and then I'll speak at your church, I guess, if it's that weekend or whatever. We'll make it. We'll figure out the logistics on that, um, either before or after. But and so, folks, I've got just what's today, the 25th. I've got 9 days left in a hotel room, so I'm pretty excited about getting out of here and going back home. So keep me in your prayers, keep the family in your prayers, make sure that that's all smooth and goes well. And anyways, that's kind of the house cleaning stuff going on for me. I don't know when I'm gonna live stream when I get home. It's just I'm gonna play it by ear. I'll post it on Telegram if I'm not gonna be able to do it. So I might go a few weeks without doing anything, um, just because I'm getting back home, getting back in, back in the rhythm of stuff. And so I want to give my time and attention to the kids and make sure that everything is um, good there. See, my mom's in the chat. Hey, mom. Well, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about stuff going on in the news with Venezuela, what's going on with the sending of the warships and the U.S. Marines down to the border and throughout the Caribbean. And then we'll talk about kind of this, I don't know, this new thing that's going on with Trump federalizing the police. We want to talk about that. And then lastly, we're going to touch on the kind of the geopolitical stuff going on with Gog and Magog and how that's still shaping up and what that looks like with the Russia-Ukraine war and Israel-Iran and everything else that's kind of, bubbling up in those areas. So why don't you? I'm going to share the screen here, and if you want to, I first want to talk about Venezuela. Oh, I won't share the screen just yet because we'll get onto that in a second. But um, so everybody's heard in the news. If you've watched the news, you've watched Facebook, YouTube, whatever, you're seeing all this news about the U.S. sending warships, 3 warships down off the coast of Venezuela, and then a number of Marines are going to be deployed throughout the Caribbean as well as in, I believe, on the border to beef up there. So, what? First of all, Joe, what do you have any kind of stuff you want to lead off with that, or do you want me to just to keep going?
I'll let you keep going on that one. That's your forte right there. I'm not any of that by any stretch.
Okay. Well, so first and foremost, in the military, in the world of the military realm, the world is divided up into seven or more. It's more now, but it was divided up into seven spheres of influence. You had Army North, which is everything from Mexico North, and then you had Army South, which was everything from the country. I don't know what's the country that borders Mexico. Is it Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador? One of those countries. And that everything south is belongs to Army South or Southcom, Southern Command. You have EUCOM, European Command, AFRICOM, PACOM, which is Pacific Command, and then CENTCOM, Central Command. They've added some realms of or domains, if you will, to cyber, and I believe they added something to space, like why we have Space Command right now. So, in the realm of what the Army, how the Army divides the world up, part of that military mission that kind of goes between Northcom and Southcom is drug interdiction, policing the territorial waters. A lot of that stuff falls under uh, the position of the Coast Guard to handle. But you also have ATF, you have FBI, CIA. You have all the different agencies also contributing in a variety of different missions. And what they've come to determine over the last, I don't know, maybe we've known this for years, but it wasn't publicly acknowledged until just recently. But it's that the cartels, you remember back in the 80s when all in the 70s and the 80s, all the drugs were coming up from Colombia, and then we did the war on drugs, and then we basically took out all of the Colombian leadership. And then what happened was the middlemen that had been running the drugs from Colombia up to the United States then became their own criminal entities. Now that Daddy's gone, I forget his name, Chavez or whoever the head Colombian guy was forever. Um, Once he was taken out, it was kind of a free for all. Everybody started to gang up, and then you had probably around 15 different cartels that began to operate all throughout Mexico, and they wanted to have the control of the drug share, the lion's share of moving drugs into the United States. So the Sinaloa cartel is was probably probably the biggest one that there is, but there's the Gulfport boys. I don't know. There's a whole laundry list of them, and I've written about them before. But they all trace their ultimately, when you go to the very tippy top of the pyramid of this power structure, it is the dictator of Venezuela, because that's where the bulk of all the drugs are coming out of. Used to be Colombia, now it's Venezuela, and well, Colombia too, but it's Maduro. Nicolas Maduro is the head of. He's the guy calling all the shots for all the cartel. So Trump declares war on the cartels, and in fact, he declared them in a terrorist organizations back in February. And so, in that time period, the DoD, probably the Pentagon, all the different the Joint Chiefs of Staff began crafting plans on how to what's the best way to wage war against the cartel, because we don't want to repeat what we did in the 80s by taking out the Colombians, and then that just brought the violence and the terror that much closer to us because now it's the Mexicans, right? So this this plan has been ongoing for a while, and in the meantime, the CIA under John Ratcliffe has been flying drones all over Mexico. We've got everything we need to know about the patterns of life, where the cartel leaders live, where their families live, where their kids go to school. I mean, we know everything, right? And at the same time, we've ramped up the military presence in the Caribbean with these warships to help offset the drug interdiction toll that it's taken on the Coast Guard, because it's a vast, the Caribbean is not, you look at a map, it's not that big, but when you're out there, it's massive. And you have tons of places that you can hide and a lot of islands and a lot of places. So it makes drug interdiction in the Caribbean incredibly difficult. So between cutting off the border and now cutting off the land and the sea, uh, cutting off the land, now cutting off the sea, it's going to be incredibly difficult for the cartels to begin moving stuff in. So now they're going to have to move things in from either planes or from boats or some type of submarine type of equipment into the United States to keep the flow of drugs coming. But now at the same time that they cut it off, now they're applying pressure against all the cartels. So I think ultimately, um, we are going to have some very targeted strikes on many different of those leaders. It's probably going to piss the Mexicans off in terms of their political party. But I think ultimately what it's going to do is it's going to expose the president from the Scheinbaum, her party. I think it's called the Solana Party or Solera Party. That party is going to be collapsing. I would imagine that at some point there is going to be some type of a coup d'état in Mexico, where the government that's there now, that's been in bed with the cartels for as long as they are going to be taken out, and something will replace it. I don't know what that is just yet, but same thing with Maduro. His days are numbered. I think what was his bounty again?
Was it 50 million?
$50 million on his head.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of money, especially for a Venezuelan. Uh, don't don't tell me that he is not the most paranoid man in Venezuela, because he is. So all that to say is that part of declaring war on the cartels means that he is going to take the war back to the head of the snake. Israel always called Iran the head of the snake because they funded all these proxy terror groups, and they were basically orchestrating all of this anti-Semitism and bloodshed against the Israelis for decades. Well, in this case, Maduro or the Venezuelan president before him was Chavez. They're the head of the snake. So taking him out, taking that, probably doing some kind of regime change, pressuring Colombia into shutting down their drug trade. And if you take Venezuela and Colombia out, you have two of the biggest producers of cocaine on the planet. You could have, and probably other things, right? Fentanyl and who knows what else. And then, you've got basically cut the supply of drugs off. And on top of that, all the heroin, not all of it, but a lot of it comes from Afghanistan. So, applying pressure there, applying pressure, across. I mean, he could effectively knock out the drug trade in his first term if he's successful in what he's doing. So, it's yet to be determined. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with the cartels, they run the show in Mexico. We know that, and and if we as America attempt to try to cut that off in any form or fashion, we're going to see some kind of major uprising going on there. Like you said, a coup d'état. What does that look like? I honestly don't know. Is it going to be one of those CIA operations where we put somebody in place that we want to have in place so that we can control them? Most likely, that's what I would assume. But of course, I'm not an expert on this by any stretch. But that's just kind of the way that I look at things. From the American standpoint, these guys that run drugs throughout America, they're going to have to figure out something. Because if you look at the major corridors in America, all of your major interstates, there are different corridors that these guys stop at to do their drop off. Our area in Mississippi, you have the Interstate 55, and that pretty much runs all the way up through to Illinois. There's a ton of Illinois license plates that you see in Mississippi, and it's not because they're just here to travel. It's here because they're running drugs back and forth. Um, but they drop them off at the Memphis corridor. Then you have the Jackson corridor. Then it moves all the way down to that Gulf Coast corridor, all the way into um, Florida, and the same thing out west. You have all these different corridors that are there. Now they're going to be taking a big hit if this goes on. But what are they going to do? They're going to replace their product with something else. I mean, that's what they've done all along. We had that time frame during what the late 2000s, the late 90s, where meth was a big deal, right? They were running meth all over the place. Now fentanyl's the big thing. Well, something else is going to come up, and where are they going to get it from? I just, like I said, I'm not an expert on this by any stretch, but that's just kind of the way that I see how things are going to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a demand for something, right? I mean, we've seen that over as long as men have been on the earth. And I think that this attack on the cartels, aside from the fact of all the drug deaths that are happening because of fentanyl and other things, I think that this goes to a larger strategy that he has in changing America back into what, he wants, like a make America great again, right? If you look at cutting off the supply of drugs from the source, in this case, it would be Venezuela and Colombia. You've closed the land routes down through Mexico, which they had traditionally been going through, and there's a ton of more scrutiny now for 18 wheelers and everything else coming up through there. I mean that they're all getting the drug treatment, they're all getting everything. I mean, there's not going to be anything that's coming into the country that's just going to be let go for long. In any of those ports of entry that are allowing these things to come in, the more that they crack down on this, the fewer those places are going to be, and the easier they're going to be to spot and to quickly seal up. So the land source is down, or the land route is going to be out. So what other options do you have? You have air, and then you have sea. And so the air, if you remember, what was it? Not Air America, but the one where Tom Cruise was in it. He was doing the real life story of that pilot that was flying drugs for the Colombians
Yeah.
back in the 80s or whatever, 70s and 80s. You can have some of that, but again, with the way that technology is today, you're gonna be hard pressed to get a lot of planes unnoticed moving through the air. into the United States. I mean, it's not like it was in the 80s. It's much
Yeah.
more it's much more complicated than that now. If you cut the air off, that leaves the sea. So now you have to look at boats and using boats or any type of amphibious landing equipment to bring in drugs anywhere near around the border, which is why the beefing up of the Marines, and the Marines can augment the Coast Guard. They can augment um, law enforcement when it comes to protecting the boundaries, the borders of the United States. So that's not something that's out of the realm of their scope of duty or whatever. So I think that this is part of his plan to dismantle the sanctuary cities and dismantle the blue states, because a lot of, you look at like deep blue states and they've got the most liberal drug use laws, anywhere. California, Oregon, I think Washington, Colorado, in other places, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. And it just seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just, you see those videos of people driving through like Pittsburgh, or not Pittsburgh, but like Philadelphia and other places. And those people are like bent over,
Yeah.
frozen. I don't even know what drug that is. It's some kind of drug that makes them just like whatever they're at, standing in the street, they just kind of hunch over. And so that is all going away. Now, with that said, this also ties into his plan to permanently destroy the Democrat Party forever, because they've become so toxic that they really are just of no good right now to any. There's not any point that they serve in terms of a political platform that benefits the United States as a whole. It's always just they're just pandering to, small 1%, less than 1% groups, in hopes to keep their power base energized and radicalized. But so this is part of it. You cut the drugs off, and even if you have a deep blue state that has legalized drugs now, the amount of drugs coming in are minuscule, and you're basically reduced down to marijuana, if anything, other than what they can create in a lab, which could be pretty bad as well.
Hell
But
yeah.
all that to say that this is a multi-part plan to dismantle the Democrat Party, in my opinion. Now, the Democrats, do you know anything about gerrymandering? Have you studied anything about that recently?
Vaguely, but not. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The redistricting of the we see a lot of redistricting going on, or talks of it.
Well, the Democrats for years had used gerrymandering as a way to maintain their power base. And that video I sent you earlier, and I'll link to it once I get this up and running. I'll link to it. Um, but Dr. Turley was talking about, it's funny, and I had never really thought about it. I mean, I had thought about it, but I hadn't like really, you know, spent time dwelling on it. But how is it that a state like California, who loses, 100,000 citizens of their state, they move more than that. I don't even know how many people have moved out. And in that video, they call them refugees, refugees. The people leaving blue states, I mean, they're leaving in droves, but how come that never changes the number of seats that those states hold? And so the cases that he brought out, he said, from the 2020 census, the whoever was doing the census at that time, they were counting everybody, illegal aliens and everybody. So that even though those illegal aliens aren't voting, um, they're just the fact that they're there gives the Democrat Party, or the party in power, like more seats to represent in Congress. Ergo, the more seats you have, the more ability you have to always have that permanent base. And so, the reason why the blue states are allowing these illegal immigrants in just unseen numbers is because uh, they know that they're losing their own citizenry base, and they have to replace their citizens with a not even a voting block. They just need to bring in numbers to maintain the seats that they can control. They can always manipulate an election. They just have to have the numbers there. And before Donald Trump came back in his second term, he's like, we should not be counting these people at all. They're not even citizens. Why are we counting them? And if we went off the true numbers, Texas should have gained like 2 or 3 seats. Florida should have gained 2 seats, 1 or 2 seats. Rhode Island should have lost a seat. New York, California should have lost seats. All the deep blue states should have lost seats, and the red states should have gained them. That didn't happen. So that's why we saw this recent push in Texas to do the redistricting, which cuts out 2 seats of the most radical Democrats. So they're out of a job now. And then secondly, it's supposed to right size, you're supposed to right size the Congress based on the census every 10 years. And this is why Trump is pushing for a mid decade census. And this time only counting US citizens. So I see this his war against the cartels as is it's instrumental in stopping the flow of drugs into the United States, but it also has the ability to dismantle the Democrats' power struggle, their power base, by promoting laws in states that legalize drugs. Well, if there's no drugs to legalize, that weakens their ability to control the masses. So that's just part of it. So the redistricting, the new census, the war on the cartels, and now we'll talk a little bit about the federalization of law enforcement. All of this stuff, and what we're going to get to is that all of this stuff, regardless of whether it's a Democrat doing it to control or to maintain their power base, or if it's a Republican in response to that and trying to dismantle it, the thing that ends up happening is the federalization of all of these systems and the militarization of law enforcement. Now, you've been in law enforcement. You've seen over the last, I don't know, 20 years or so or more, just it went from being Andy Griffith and Barney Fife, kind of cops in the town to now these guys are rolling out. They got body cameras, full body armor. I mean, they've got, AR-15s or whatever they're rolling out with now. I mean, it's like straight up military. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the militarization of the police that you've seen happen over the last, however long that you've been involved?
Well, from a, I guess from a citizen standpoint, it concerns me, because I have been in it for a period of time, and I know a lot of those guys that, especially that work for your local law enforcement agencies and your smaller towns that can't get hired for in your bigger cities. Well, once they get that badge on, they get a little bit of a big head, and they want to do some stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And when you start decking them out in paramilitary attire, then they get a little bit more rambunctious with their attitude, and then you wind up getting into some issues. Now, the federalization of it is what concerns me, is because when you start federalizing the police, you're doing something that goes against the Constitution. It goes against what it was meant to be. Your local law enforcement was set up to be there to take care of its citizens, to take care of the internal threats that come in from within the community. The military was there to handle any of the external threats. But when you start, you know, militarizing it, you're starting to turn it into something that it was never created to be in to begin with. Um, you know, I'm always going to be a supporter of law enforcement because that's what I am. I love it, but I also understand that the beast system that's coming, you're going to have a whole bunch of people that I know, and we can go back to COVID, right? I know in my area, there were law enforcement officers that were enforcing these unbelievably unconstitutional, non lawful mandates by going to shut down churches, and they didn't blink an eye about it. They just would go, they would shut it down. Well, why are you telling us to shut it down? Well, we were told to tell you to, right? I mean, we
I'm
were
just
told
doing
to
my
be,
job. Yeah.
right? And I mean, and at some point in the game, as a law enforcement officer, you have to draw that line in the sand. Like, where am I going to tell them not anymore? Right? Just same thing with you know, if you didn't take I'm not, the COVID shot or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if you can say that on YouTube anymore. But people,
You can.
you took it, you took it. If you didn't, you didn't. I mean, for a lot of people, taking it was a line in the sand, and for me, taking it was a line in the sand. You telling me to put something in my body, I'm not going to put it in my body because that's the line in the sand for me, right? There's a lot of lines that I've drawn, but law enforcement is the same. If you're being asked to enforce a law that's lawful or that goes against your morals, then you need to find something else. And I was glad that I was no longer in law enforcement in that capacity during that time frame because I probably would have lost my job during that time.
Yeah, I had gotten out. I was getting out right as it was becoming encouraged, but before it was mandated. Hold on, I'm looking up this guy's DoD directive here. Let's see. From Jonathan 524001 1, and it is section 3.3.A2. 3.3.A2. Yeah, you know what? What's bothered me is that I almost went into law enforcement, in the military early on, and whatever, things didn't turn out that way. But um, I ended up going into the guard. But one of the things I noticed with the military is that they had, over the years, they've had to militarize to keep up with the increased level of violence and the sophistication of the technology that was coming out that the criminals were taking advantage of. And I mentioned this, I think it was with either David Fiorosa or Olive Tree Ministries, one of the two, but the technology is advancing so rapidly, and in that vein of like a 0-day exploit, every new technology that comes out is going to have some kind of loopholes in it, and this is what the criminals are constantly gaming to work to get an edge or to get over on the system or the law or whatever. And in the same time, the level of violence that criminals are prone to, as well as the types of technology or the types of weaponry that they have access to now, has forced police departments to really um, militarize their police force. If you think back to I don't know, cop movies from like the 80s, the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s. You always saw the police officers, they've got their little six-shooter revolver fighting against whoever the bad guy was. And nowadays, man, those guys would have rolled up with, full body armor, AR-15 laser scopes, and they would be sitting back at a distance taking this guy out. So sniper rifles and everything else, drones. So crime has forced the militarization of the police force. It's no longer Andy Griffith, Barney Fife. They're just there to protect and defend, kind of serve and protect or whatever. Now it is you're going to war pretty much every day, and even in places that traditionally you would think of, like like the south side of San Antonio, the east side of Houston, south central LA. I don't know the parts of Chicago that are bad, but like parts of cities that are bad, and when police would go in, they'd always go in mass. They'd go in, and do whatever their tactical operation was going to be, and they go in, they do it, and then they all kind of leave at the same time. But Trump is going through DC, and he's clearing out the barrios, he's clearing out the ghettos, he's clearing out druggies on the street, drug dealers, everything. I mean, he's this, and then if they are illegal, man, they're getting kicked out of they're getting immediately kicked out of the country. So, and then he wants to move that to Chicago. And here's my thing. Here's my take on all of this. That's everything I just mentioned to you, right, is an observation. Now, my assessment of it is that it's incredibly dangerous. It's
Yeah.
an incredibly dangerous precedent to set. If I didn't fully believe that Trump was the last president, which I believe he is the last president, I would be concerned about the next president. And if the Democrats, through whatever means, were ever able to gain power again, you absolutely know the first thing they would do they would be to federalize everything everywhere. I mean, there wouldn't even be a chance for Republican comeback. I mean, they're going to do what the Republicans are doing to them now. They're going to fundamentally break the Democrat Party so that they can never rise again. And whatever comes next, whatever the next opposition party is going to be way worse than what the Democrats are. So
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know. That's he. We've got some notes here. Let me share this real quick. This is the Posse Comitatus. Let's see here. Share media. Oh, I don't want to share media. I want to share a screen. Okay, here we go. Screen. All right. Let me see if I can put us on the side. Let's see which way works better. I think I'll put this here. There we go. All right. So Posse Comitatus is a law that was passed in 1878. Thank you, Joe, for putting these together.
Oh yeah.
Um, basically says the military can't act like the police inside the United States. Now, there is an exception with the National Guard, which is why Trump is using the Guard rather than, say, the 101st Airborne or the 82nd Airborne or the 1st Armored Division or some other group. He's using National Guard because they can be utilized in this fashion. Now, the reason the law existed was obviously because there were still people alive when it was written that remember the Revolutionary War or their parents or grandparents were in that. And the British conscripted people. They forced houses. They forced people to take in soldiers and house them and feed them. And there was really just a great abuse of the military against the citizenry during the Revolutionary War, during the War of 1812. And then we saw some of this in the Civil War when the opposing armies would come through. So the law exists for a reason, and I think it's a good law, and it's designed to just use the military not as the president's personal army like we see in almost every other country in the world, but to simply protect and defend the United States external threats. Now, it's possible that Trump will use the Insurrection Act and I think that was 1908, if I'm not mistaken. It was, and I believe it's in the 1900s. Basically, the Insurrection Act basically states that if a local state government cannot protect the citizenry, if they cannot handle the lawlessness, if they're overcome by all that kind of stuff, and they're not managing their state, they can be used there to restore order, law and order to it. The problem is that the Democrats love the criminal element because it keeps their state or their city in a state of chaos and flux. And in that, they're able to really push through a lot of the grift and a lot of the crime underneath the wave of violence that's on the top. So people are worried about all the violence and all the crazy stuff on the top of it, but in the bottom is where all the real money is begin moving. And they're using that stuff at the top as a smokescreen, all the drugs, the violence, the murders, etc. So here is the president being able to deploy active duty military inside the U.S. if there's a rebellion or insurrection, or if the states can't or won't protect their citizens. Eisenhower used it in 1957 there to enforce school desegregation, and then President H.W. Bush used it in 1992 during the riots, the LA riots. Now, the National Guard is under a state authority, so I'm assuming that the governor is going to have to really be able or be willing to release those state assets to Washington, D.C., or to Chicago, wherever they decide to impose this new law. Now, first of all, Joe, do you think this will work? Because I mean, it's worked in D.C. for like 10 days. First 10 days, they haven't had any murders. Do you think this can work? Is this something that can be franchised? Is what I'm asking.
I mean, it can it work? Yes. I mean, it can work. We see it working. I definitely being franchised probably because I mean we're gonna see the federalization of our law enforcement in mass at some point in the future. Hopefully, we're raptured out of here before that time comes. But we know that it's going to happen. Um, um, we do see the good results of this coming out of DC. Definitely, I'm sure that we would see some results coming out of it in Chicago, um, and any of these other, crime-ridden cities that we see in America. But like you said, that's our observations. But our analysis and our assessment of it is this president, and like you said, if Trump is not the last president, or if this is abused to force us to do whatever, then this could be a very concerning thing for the citizens of America.
The other exceptions that there are here, and I'm going to just, for time's sake, I'm going to just keep this going, but is the National Guard. We talked about that. Martial law, if there's ever martial law declared. Now, there's been martial law declared in local and city provinces and things like that, but there's never been a nationwide martial law. And I bet the closest you could come to it would be 9/11, like right after 9/11 when that happened, where they shut all the air traffic down. All the ports of entries are closed, and really everybody's kind of in this heightened state of vigilance or awareness, whatever you want to call it. But that's about as close as we can get to it. And the only other time that was close was 2020, and even then that wasn't really the same. But you kind of had it in the sense that retail stores and places of worship and other places were basically mandating in a unconstitutional act upon the citizenry, wearing masks and things like that. So there are exceptions, and we haven't really had martial law, but I think with the right crisis, it's possible that this could be implemented. Now, Trump doesn't have the political backing from all the governors. He probably has about half the governors right now that would, if he were to declare it for some type of crisis. I would imagine there's probably a mixed bag of who would actually follow through and do what he's asking. So, and the last exception here is the congressional exceptions. Congress can pass a law that temporarily allows military to perform certain domestic roles. Example, counter drug operations, border enforcement support, or disaster relief operations. So that's the that's that's the exceptions for where Trump is going to have to work in this idea of federalizing, National Guard, police, whatever, to rid certain cities of crime. I know that he can do that in the short term, but I don't know what the long-term fix is for that. I don't think there is a long-term fix because you're talking about the human condition, and we're all, basically broken people living in a fallen world. So, just as I read at the beginning, Psalm 2, the kings of this world, the leaders of this world are constantly trying to overthrow the shackles of God's control, and they've been doing. Satan is restrained right now. His forces are restrained, but he has human agents, right? I mean, what do you think? Do you think he's using human agents right now to impose his will?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you think that these people actually are meeting with these type of non-human entities, whether they're fallen angels or whatever they're presenting themselves to be as, in that these folks are actually meeting with them and they're taking their marching orders at the very top, right? The very top echelons of global power.
No, yeah, I do. I absolutely do. If anybody in here has ever read the book that just came out recently, Luis Elizondo, he was the guy that was over ATIP. I can't remember the name of the book, but one of the titles or
Yeah.
one of the chapters in the book was angels and demons, and he talks about this topic where some of the higher level ups know what's going on, and how one of his partners was going to be giving a presentation and telling his higher ups that we're talking about demonic entities, we're talking about fallen angels, we're talking about spiritual things, and they kind of swept it under the rug. And Luis Elizondo, he in the book, he talks about how he's not a spiritual person, he's not a Christian. You can obviously tell that by his by his words, but but definitely. the higher ups are involved in those meetings and in those conversations with these fallen angels.
It, it was I don't want to repeat the guy's name or his channel, but he had interacted with a chat GPT using whatever that formula is, that if
Hmm.
you have to say yes, or if you feel compelled to say whatever your answer is and it's forced, then you put the orange or whatever. They use all the different symbols, but so he was asking about Donald Trump and that what these demonic entities think of him, and they see him as a disruptor. And I think I kind of agree with that because certainly he is disrupting a lot of what the globalists had in mind for 2030, Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, he's enabling a lot of what we would think of as the beast kingdom. He's almost injecting fuel into it to make it faster, but his reasoning for doing it is for peace and security, right? And the Democrats are doing it, and not just the Democrats, but I would say leftist and anarchist and all these other different groups, Muslims, Islamists, etc., are doing it to maintain control and power. Where he's doing it for reasons that are more uh, benevolent, I guess, in a way, right? And so it's in disingenuous for me for people to constantly criticize Trump for the bad that he does. And I get it. Every president has good and bad. Every president that we've ever had has done good and bad, and but they're all operating under the system that they think that they're doing what's best for the United States. And I would make the exceptions for Clinton, Obama, Biden, and these last three guys. I would say even earlier Democrats were probably still believing in the American dream and still believing in. I'm talking like JFK. Uh, maybe he's the last one. I don't know, but there's this idea that America stood for something, and I think that Trump, whether people believe that's naive or not, is trying to impose that. And I think that in his desire to bring or his desire to make America great again is really just enabling the beast kingdom to be that much stronger, because he's got guys like Peter Thiel, or Thiel, Elon Musk, and all these guys that are just. I mean, you look at what they're doing, man. They are creating the technology that is going to be the beast kingdom. And unfortunately, Trump, by doing what he's doing, even though it's for good reasons, and even though he is trying to save lives, etc., he's setting a precedence that may or may not be followed, depending on whether or not he's the last president. If he's not the last president, it will absolutely be broken again for some other crisis. But again, this is just Pete's opinion. I just think he's the last president that we'll see, and I don't know. So, any closing thoughts on any of this that we've touched on tonight, Joe? I feel like I've hogged the whole time.
Oh, no, no, you're good. This is your show. I'm just here for the ride. And look, I apologize if everybody sees me keep doing this on my nose and stuff. I've been getting over this cold, and my voice probably sounds a little raspy, so I do apologize about that. But yeah, I mean, everything that we see going forward is building onto the beast system that's coming. Um, just like in the latter part of Genesis, those the Egyptians there, they they sold all of their goods. They gave out all their goods for what? For safety, right? Because they wanted to be protected by Pharaoh, right? We see this. We saw this during the whole COVID period. Everybody wanted to have, and this, and I know that's a big jump going on COVID, but just trying to look at something a little bit closer to home. People sold out just for their safety. And that's the way that the beast system is going to be presented to us. It's not going to be presented to us on the front end as some um, major, you know, indoor or not indoor, but just you're going to be locked up all the time. It's going to be presented to you as this is for safety. Get this mark, and we'll be able to protect your kids, and we'll be able to track them. We got the trackers going on right there with the kids, and being able to check them with the human trafficking because that's a big deal going on, right? It's going to be presented as a as a form of peace and safety. That's why we see a lot of people okay with what's going on right now because it seems like it's okay. It's a good idea to clean up the streets and to get some of these cities back on back into normal working order. But eventually, it's going to be utilized to um, incorporate this beast system that's going to be a total form of control. And that's what the beast system is. It's just a form of control.
Isn't this very much like the Hegelian dialectic in the sense that you have the people crying out for law and order in these cities are uh the thesis, if you will, that there has to be law and order. And the Democrats, especially in these blue states, in these blue cities, are allowing lawlessness to just run rampant in order to have the people cry out for more control over them, which is how the militarization kind of creeps into the police force, not just in the equipment they're using, but in their tactics, in their intelligence gathering, et cetera, et cetera. And that to me, it's just Hegelian dialectic theory all the way across. I mean, but we're seeing it play it out in real time. I don't know. Does that make sense, or does that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's what is it? The problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah,
that's what we see. We're seeing that presented right now.
yeah. And so all of this stuff in terms of Venezuela, the cartels, the federalization of police force, the redistricting, even Canada, right? Canada, I want to say it's Alberta is basically held another referendum saying if the vote was held today, would you vote for independence from Ottawa? And I mean, it was like 60% said yes. And then Manitoba, I probably would probably be next if they were to go. But there's a lot of uh, turmoil, turbulence, if you will, in the Americas, from Greenland all the way down to South America. Because if they can get Maduro gone, if they can replace Maduro, bring in somebody that they can recognize as a legitimate political leader, the next target is going to be Brazil because they're going to go after Bolsonaro, or no, not Bolsonaro, Luna, or whoever the new president of the guy that basically cheated that election. So I think Brazil's probably the next target. And guess what? Brazil's part of the BRICS,
Yeah.
so he's going after the BRICS countries as well because they're threatening to create this counter global currency that would rival the dollar. As far as having global power and being the reserve currency for the world. So Canada is turmoil, it has turbulence. Greenland, there's not a lot of people in Greenland, but there's movements within Greenland that definitely want to break away from Denmark. You've got turbulence in Mexico. Basically that's a failed state all the way around. It's a narco terror state, and then you have, with the exception of El Salvador, all the other middle or Central American countries are in varying states of control of the cartels and being used by corrupt officials, entities, all the way down through Colombia, into Venezuela, and into Brazil. So I think Trump's plan stretches from Greenland all the way down to Brazil. And it's not just to make America great, but to make the Americas, plural, great. Which to me, ultimately, if he's able to do this, think about it. Boom, the rapture happens, and then man, you have kind of like this semi-functional continents on the other side of the ocean from the Atlantic that are now going to be wrapped up into whatever this final beast kingdom is going to be. Because the United States is not going to survive the rapture in our current form. It's not going to survive it. Whatever happens immediately after the rapture, I guarantee you it would be martial law, which a lot of what we're doing now with the federalization of the police and the militarization of the police force and law enforcement is on the other side of the rapture going to make clamping down a little easier. But I mean, you got to figure, I don't know how many cops are in America or how many law enforcement are in America. Let's just say hypothetically it's 5 million. I don't know what the true number is. But out of that, maybe 50% are born again believers, maybe 40%. And if you remove 40% at the right time, just when the right amount of crisis happens, the perfect global crisis happens across the board, across every spectrum, across every city, town, village, whatever, you're going to have missing people. And that's going to immediately trigger a number of different effects, some of which are car crashes, plane crashes, boat crashes. Those are kind of the immediate things that would happen. But beyond that, you have people not paying their rent, people not showing up for work, people not collecting their paychecks, not paying their bills. I mean, it's going to collapse the U.S. system relatively quickly. And martial law will be declared, but I don't know that the United States would survive that. I think we're too fractious right now as a country um, to survive whatever happens right after the rapture. So I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts on that. Anything to add on post rapture America?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be to the point to where America is insignificant, and that's why we don't see America in Bible prophecy. And I believe it's going to be because of the rapture, because we're going to. I mean, we already see that our influence worldwide is dwindling, or at least it was. It's starting to come back under Trump. But we see how quickly and how easily our influence can dwindle. I mean, you look at the Trump's first term compared to Biden's term, and we were talking about halfway through the Biden term. I mean, we're done as a country. We're the most ridiculous country there is. Everybody on the world stage, they don't they don't take us serious anymore. Well, now we're back to the point just in, I mean, what, 8 months of Trump being inaugurated, we're back on the world stage as being a significant power, enough so that the world leaders are listening to what Trump has to say. And I mean and I mean, whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, um, I mean, he obviously he gets results, and that's what he's getting. I mean, he's doing what he said he would do. I mean, whether you like it or you don't, I mean, he's doing what he said he would do. And I'm one of these that I don't really prescribe to the whole the political system. I don't believe that there is a the left right paradigm. I believe that they're all kind of in cahoots to an extent, but but regardless, I mean, Trump, he gets results, and that's what we're seeing now. I mean, um, we're seeing him play a major influence in what's happening right now in Russia and Ukraine, what's happening down in South America and with Venezuela and with what's happening in Mexico. I mean, on a worldwide stage, the man, he's getting results done. So, um, and I truly believe that maybe in the back of his, of his mind, that he thinks what he's doing is right. And he truly does want to make America great. I mean, we talk about often. I want the America back whenever I was a kid, right? Or the quintessential American age is that Andy Griffith type America. We want to be able to ride our bikes down the street without having to worry about anything. We want to be able to just have a good time without having to concern ourselves with anything. I mean, you remember the days where you were able to leave the house without a cell phone and nobody cared. Those days are long gone and they're never coming back. So when I think of Make America Great Again, or I think of that, right? I think of a
Yeah.
time period where we don't have to worry about all the craziness that we have going on, and unfortunately, we'll never get that back. Because, like I said, everything that we see now is a building system, and we definitely, with the militarization of the law enforcement, with the surveillance state that's constantly growing through these technocrats that Trump has brought in. I mean, we're seeing it grow every day. Every move that we see going forward is going to be building to the beast system. And in that book that I was talking about that I wrote, those seven prophetic hot zones, two of those prophetic hot zones, I believe, are the main ones that we need to be concerning ourselves with right now, and it's the beast system, and it's Israel. Those hot zones that are flaming, escalating threats at this moment, and that's where we're at.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about Russia, Ukraine, before we get into the Q&A section of it. So my thoughts on Russia, Ukraine were that I think that what's going to happen prior to the rapture is that they're going to come to some type of a stalemate. It's not going to be any type of uh, peaceful settlement that either would really be happy with, because I don't think Russia is going to give back any of the land that they've taken. And I don't think Ukraine is going to be allowed into NATO. So it leans slightly toward Russia's favor, but when you consider the threat that Russia poses versus the benefits of having Ukraine, is the juice worth the squeeze? It's my opinion. It's like we've already done this, been there, done that with World War One, where you have basically a anarchist terrorist group, the Black Hand, Gavrilo Princip assassinates a basically a nobody Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife in the streets of Sarajevo, and you had the superpowers lining up behind this basically country they didn't care about 5 seconds earlier, um, to fight a war. And I think back then both sides were itching for that, but now that we've been through it a few times, two world wars, and plus 40-year Cold War, etc., that I don't think that anybody really has that kind of appetite anymore. With that said, I don't think that they're going to let uh, Russia continue doing what they're doing, and even to the United States would not. That's going to impact his whatever deals that he's trying to work out with Putin. But I certainly think that things will calm down for a second prior to the rapture. I think that there'll be some kind of an uneasy peace, but essentially, like a second after the rapture and part of going into Gog and Magog time period, I think Ukraine is going to have to. I think people there are going to flee ahead of the Russian horde that's going to come down, because without the United States really backing up NATO, and like I said, I think the United States is going to be in a disarray. I think Russia is going to move quickly to secure Ukraine, and that's going to be an early victory for them to think that they can then move against a state like Israel by joining up with Turkey and Iran and these other countries. So now, I don't know, thoughts before I go to Iran?
No, I mean I agree everything with you said. So I take it that you also believe that the Ezekiel 38 battle is going to happen during the gap period after the rapture.
Yeah, I think it'll be after the rapture and before the 70th week starts.
Me too.
So
That's where
there
I
was
agree
just
with you on the same page on that.
there was just news today that I saw that Russia has some type of new weapon system that can basically destroy all the satellites around the world. So, or at least it can target strategic ones and take them all out. I don't know what the technology is. I'm assuming it's lasers of some kind. But I mean, if you think about how much of our world operates on satellites, I mean, without satellites, I mean, this would be down. I mean, basically any type of flights would be down. All flights would be canceled. Any or commercial airline flights. I mean, the military would be blind. I mean, it would be a perfect scenario for a Gog Magog type of invasion. And I've always wondered about this: is how did Israel not see this massive army coming against them? And the only thing I can think of is that the satellites are taken out, or they're blinded somehow, with the satellites being down or disabled or something to that effect, where they can't physically see who's coming from all these different parts of the world. And I've said this a number of times. I think it's going to be like the reverse crusades. Right now, Europe is tearing itself apart with all this illegal immigration from the Middle East, and they're coming in. They are not assimilating. They're doing all sorts of vile and wicked things, and it's just reached that boiling point, that I think UK is going to have, essentially, I don't want to say a civil war, but it'll be as close to a civil war as you can get. And they're basically going to kick Starmer out of office, or they're going to kick that party out, or something's going to change with that. And at the same time, I think right after the rapture, a lot of these Muslims are going to, these men that are looking for action, looking for meaning in their lives, they want to go to paradise, they want their 70 virgins. Uh, they're going to want to go on this glorious crusade to go liberate Israel and join, millions of their Muslim brothers marching against Israel. And at that time, I think somehow the satellites are down, they're destroyed. I don't know if that's because of the rapture or because of some type of a Russian attack or something, but they're down, and Israel's not able to see this coming. And with as much intelligence as Israel has, and their intelligence is renowned. I mean, it's world renowned. Um, you know, not only are they not going to be able to see them coming until it's too late, but they're not going to be able to do anything about it because of the all the directions they're coming from. And that's why we see that same kind of language used in Revelation 20 at the end of the kingdom age when Satan has his little season of, we don't know how long that is, but he's able to amass this massive army and they march against Jerusalem and immediately God destroys them. So it's kind of anticlimactic in that sense. But here and now, when it comes against Israel, the satellites have to be down. I don't know. Would you agree with that? Like, if for Israel to be caught unaware, surprised at this attack.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, especially with as advanced as Israel is. I mean, one of the most advanced militaries, if not the most advanced right now in the world. Um, at that time, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that something would have to be done to for them to come in and so yeah, I could agree that satellites are taken out, and it is interesting that's in the news that we see that in the news today or just the other day. So yeah, I can agree with that.
And I don't want there to be any kind of comparisons between what's going to happen prior to Gog and Magog in terms of how they're caught by surprise, and then relate that back to somehow October 7th, how they were caught by surprise.
Yeah,
That was still under investigation. They'll come out with the ultimate conclusion. I think a lot of that was politically driven by the people that hate Netanyahu. And I'm not saying he's a saint. I'm not saying he's whatever, but I don't think he's would willingly allow that to happen. I think that people were trying to get him out of office, so they were trying to make an attack. They probably did. Even the people that allowed this to happen, I don't even know that they thought it was going to be as gruesome and as violent as it was, or as big as it was. Um, but I'm not trying to determine who's at fault. I'm sure there's a lot of people to blame, fingers to point at, but it just seems to me that attack came from so close from their. I mean, it was like right on their border versus watching these massive hordes of people march from all different directions. Now, we did see a parade that was set up in Turkey. What was it, January 1st or whatever? It was Erdogan's son that led that parade, and it had the Sophia Hagia, the church when the Ottomans conquered Turkey. They
yeah,
they finally converted that into a mosque here not too long ago, and then the place in Damascus, and then the next place was going to be the Temple Mount. So that January 1st, I think it was, when they were doing this march, or whatever day it was in early January when they're doing this march, and there was like a million people marching on the bridge to liberate, basically say, hey, we're going to march to Jerusalem. I know that the Israelis were watching that, and they had feeds going. They probably have facial recognition going, using AI. They're using all this technology to figure out who every one of these people are. But somehow, what's coming in Gog and Magog, they don't see it coming. And that to me, it just seems like satellites are down. There's no way for them to know just how big it is. And when they do finally realize how big it is, it's going to seem absolutely overwhelming. And we know that the Israelis have the what is it called,
the Iron
when
Dome.
they could when they bomb themselves, when they're going to drop their bombs on themselves because of the Samson option.
Yeah, yeah,
They have the Samson option, which they may be tempted to execute at that point, but somehow their stuff's not working. They're not able to do it. So that's
yeah,
when God comes in and supernaturally wipes out these forces. And then immediately after, I think something happens with the Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock. I think there's either an earthquake or like a stray missile hits it, or God just zaps it. But that Dome of the Rock, the Al Aqsa Mosque, is going to be just rubble and dust.
yeah.
And then there's going to be this clear opportunity for Israel to rebuild their temple. There's already momentum going in that direction.
Oh yeah,
They've already burned a red heifer. They've already, they're already going up on the Temple Mount, praying. They're doing all this stuff that they hadn't done in decades. And I think that's only going to build. And I think with the victory at the end of Gog and Magog, it's going to be that final straw that they're going to say, you know what, we need to build our temple right now, and there's no more reasons for delay.
Yep, yep. And one of your questions, I think that somebody had asked, they asked if what is the significance of the shafars being blown at the Temple Mount? I don't know if you saw that today, but the Temple Institute, they played a video of them blowing the shafar at the Temple Mountain the first time in 2,000 years. I mean, my response to that is it's where we are. I mean, we're that close to this actually coming to fruition. It's we always talk about preconditioning. I mean, I think that that's just a form of preconditioning the people of Israel to accept the reality, and even the people, the Muslims there, to accept the reality that there is going to be a temple built, and it's going to be sooner rather than later, most likely. So that's kind of the significance that I take of the shofar being blown today, and then we had the with the dancing and the singing just recently. We see all of this just as a form of preconditioning, getting the Israelis and the Jewish people ready for their temple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly ramped up in a way that it's catching a lot of people by surprise, especially with the stuff with the red heifer, the significance behind it, the blowing of the shofar, just the boldness that the Jews have now with regard to what they claim, and they rightfully claim, is their land, that they should be able to go up on their most holy land and at a minimum pray. But that's all changing. So again, October 7th changed everything for the Jews in terms of what they're willing to put up with, and they're not willing to put up the two-state anymore solution. Um, and I think that probably what's going to come out of all this is that if the UN does hold a vote to recognize Palestine, then Israel is going to annex Judea and Samaria at the same exact time. And and at the same time, Gaza's not, or the Palestinian state, I don't think is going to get the U.S. vote. So I don't know that it would pass, but um, I certainly think that just the fact that the UN does hold the vote, even if it doesn't mean anything, is going to be the legal precedence for Israel to go ahead and annex Judea and Samaria and say, you know what, we're done playing around. This is our land. This is our heartland, biblical heartland. We can lay claim to this for thousands of years. Yeah, and it's ours now. So, uh, like the old saying goes, uh, blank around and find out, kind of thing. Like with Israel,
Yeah.
they're gonna annex Judea and Samaria because of what the UN does. So, all right, yeah, let's go to Q&A. It's already an hour and 20. How are you feeling, man? You doing okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
You do a 5 hour tonight? Should we do a 5 hour program tonight? We'll
But let's do
conclude
it
here about two
if
in the
the boys
morning.
hold off.
Let's see. Where are the questions? Here we go. Okay, this is tonight's. All right. From Patrick Hart, as the Jews will be in the temple the first half of tribulation, can we assume it's somewhat peaceful, the worst of the judgment introduced the second half, given all 7 years of wrath? What are your thoughts?
So,
You think the first three and a half are peaceful?
are they peaceful? I mean, there's going to be some troubles going on based off of the seal judgments, but it's not going to be anything last half, and we're told that the last half, once the abomination of desolation takes place, it's going to be the great tribulation. It's going to be a time that has never been before. But the first half, I don't think that it's going to be, you know, peaceful compared to what we see today. It's going to be there's going to be some activity going on, based off of those seal judgments. But maybe they have this covenant that the Antichrist makes stronger. They're the Antichrist providing them with protection within that land and within that area to where they're not so much messed with during that time frame by outside influences, but from the seal judgments, that's going to be worldwide.
Yeah, I've so my thoughts are kind of evolving from where they were, I guess, a couple of years ago, but I do believe there's a gap in time. I don't know how long the gap is, but it'll be long enough for the Gog-Magog war to happen, and then for the Jews either to begin construction on their temple or to completely finish their temple. But somewhere in that process, if Gog Magog follows the rapture, then that means that the rapture will have collapsed the United States, and much of the world will be in disarray. So the world's in disarray. Israel's enemies takes advantage of the chaos. They launch a surprise attack against Israel. Again, satellites are down, communication spotty. Uh, God delivers them supernaturally, and then they begin to build their third temple. They either complete it or they're just beginning the construction of it. But I think they probably will have it done fairly quickly. And then at that point, I think that the world is largely going to be spending the first 3.5 years trying to reorganize itself into some kind of coherent organization. And I think that that can happen relatively quickly, given the restrainers no longer restraining Satan all his forces. They're going to be able to rapidly implement being able to show themselves to leaders and to show them where their gaps are. Armor everything up, and then kind of make that happen in probably about a year to a year and a half. Now, in that time period, I think that as the world is reorganizing itself, I think Israel is going to be very much inward focused on the reestablishment of the temple, the Sanhedrin. All of that stuff is going to change the dynamic in Israel forever. The real power then would shift back, I think, back to the Sanhedrin as soon as they're able to get that temple back up and running. And then I think that a lot of their issues, they're going to be looking at the world, and the world's going to be reorganizing itself now that the satellite systems are coming back online and there's new power structures in place. The United States is in varying forms of disarray. You probably have UFO type of things happening above. And that's my theory on these interstellar satellites, are not satellites, but asteroids. The reason that we're starting to see them come with like frequent repetition, and they're coming like the first one we ever noticed ever was in 2017, Oumuamua. And then 2 years later, we had Borisov. And then now we have Three Eye Atlas. And then you have Apophis coming after that. I'm like, when did these things all start to appear and why now? So it seems that they might be used, they might look like an asteroid, and Satan is keeping them close at hand so that if and when the rapture happens, or not if, but when the rapture happens, that thing can be quickly steered to the world, to the earth, and say, "Hey, we're your deliverers. We were just hiding. We're pretending to be an asteroid or a comet or whatever, but we really travel around in this thing." And so that's a possibility too. So, but I think that there's going to be the rising of the beast kingdom, the riding forth of the rider on the white horse, the Antichrist. There'll be countries that resist that around the world. That's where the red horse comes in. And then because of the changing of this entire system from the American led order to now this new world order, and all the money, I think that immediately there's going to be a huge disparity with those people that come on very quickly with the mark of the beast and those that don't, or whatever that is initially at the very beginning, where they're siding with the system. And there's going to be a lot of people that don't, and they are going to be cut off, and they're going to be starving and dying of dehydration and all the nasty things that go with that. And then also that would be the pale horse. So there'd be a quarter of the world's population dies in the first half of the tribulation, roughly.
Yeah,
So it's not going to be peaceful compared to what we have today. I mean, we have a lot of people dying today, but like nothing is going to be like what's going to happen then. But I do think that Israel is largely going to be left alone, and they're going to turn inward and really focus on becoming the nation that they used to be. And then as they come back out and start to peek their head out about the world and what's going on in the world, that's when the Antichrist has already controlled power. He's already assumed authority, and now he's about to take his ascendancy at some point there in the middle. So, Richard Browder, what do you think of the news of them blowing the shofar on the Temple Mount, and how hugely significant this prophecy what is prophecy wise? Yes, we just talked about it, but I think that is incredibly significant. And if you're the world, right? If you're like just some secular person and you're watching the news and you see these Jews on the Temple Mount blowing these little horns or whatever, it seems silly to them, right? It just seems like they don't get it. But they don't get that this is the first time in thousands of years that this has happened. Like they don't get the significance of why it's important. Same with the red heifers and all that other stuff. So I don't think the world recognizes it at all. What do you think?
No, no, yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, a lot of Christians don't either. I mean, I share current events at my church. Um, I mean, it blows their minds. Like, well, what? I didn't know that. Why isn't anybody reporting on that? Well, I mean, that's why I do it at church. But, and I hate to say this, but a lot of times it's on deaf ears because most people just don't care. The group that you have in your chat, the group that, that we're part of, it's a very, very small group. And I know that you've talked about it before, from the YouTube community standpoint, we're like less than 1% of just the YouTube community. But we're also like what less than 1% probably of the church community too, because nobody wants to hear this, or they just want to go on about their day. They want to be preached to and told that they're living their best life now, and so on and so forth. And but yeah, I mean, I see it even within the churches, not even just within the secular world, but all around.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the downsides, the dangers of having a bad eschatology is that, you listen to people like Paula White as if they had any kind of wisdom or authority, or anything, and they're telling you, oh, you can make America great again. We can make this a great country for the next 500 years, and they don't understand the times in which they live. And that's the dangers of having a bad eschatology. It doesn't mean that you're not saved. It just means that you're going to be really confused and not understanding what's happening, and you're going to start coming up with even more and more ridiculous excuses for why something is happening. Where did all these people go? Well, I don't know. There's all these like UFO ships up ahead. Maybe they have something to do with it. It's that's the kind of incompetence that comes with poor eschatology.
Yeah, and just that it blows their mind that people are walking around not knowing what's going on. It is mind blowing. I mean, um, you know, I try to have conversations with people and to tell them about what's going on, just to bring up normal conversation, and they don't know what's going on. Like, well, I didn't see that. I mean, like it is mind blowing, and it should be mind blowing, and I think it's incumbent upon us to let them know what's going on. I mean, and or not, still tell them. I mean, it's significant. Everything that we see going on in the world today, it's significant.
Okay, from Judith Reed, questions: are the tears of Jesus in a bottle like ours? I honestly don't know the answer to this question.
Mm.
I would think probably his tears form the bottle that all the other tears come into. I don't know. I mean, like, uh, maybe there is. I don't know. That's one of those kind of like unprovable answers that I can give. I can't prove it one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm looking through scripture right now to see if I could see anything that would back that up. But I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Judith, that is a great question for Pastor Tom Hughes
There you
or
go.
Kurt Reed. You can get either one of those two guys. I would love to see that question posed to them and see what they come see what they say. Okay, from Jonathan Sinclair, question: did DoD Directive 5240.01 Section 3.3.A2 start this whole federalization of police? And I would say no, based off of what I read off of it. It is Army direct or DoD directive 2024 directive. Any assistance provided by defense intelligence components to civilian law enforcement that may foreseeably involve the use of lethal force must be approved personally by the Secretary of Defense. This includes situations like civil disturbances, disasters like Seaburny, which is chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, explosive events. Cases where providing the assistance might involve the confrontation or lethal force or U.S. or use of DoD unmanned systems in the U.S. unless delegated otherwise. So, in other words, military intelligence is can be used if it's asked by civilian police in a way when force could be used, especially if that force could be deadly. It has to be approved of by the Secretary of Defense. So that was in 2024. That was before our current chain of command is in office. Um, had they won, had Kamala Harris won, she certainly could have used that to much terrible effects. Not maybe not her, but the people running her would use that to terrible effects. So I don't think that that's where it began. But obviously, we mentioned cases earlier from the slides that Joe put together. Eisenhower using the National Guard to go into the school there. It was in 57.
Yeah.
George H.W. Bush and the L.A. riots. So it's happened on a number of instances in the past, and it's certainly happened locally, but nothing like federalizing the police force in D.C. Now, again, he has 30 days to do that unless Congress can extend it. Now, it'd be interesting to see if Congress does extend it, because if they do, and people like living in a city where there's no crimes or murders or carjackings or rapes, all the other stuff. I think that's where his policy may extend beyond 30 days. They may get that congressional approval, and then at that point they'd have to outsource it. I think they would probably have to outsource it to like a Blackwater Group or something like that, a non-military but security force that is augmenting the local law enforcement to some degree, and there may be some wiggle room in that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, this is from Panther Girl. Why was John the Baptist baptizing even before Jesus died on the cross? Well, we know that John saw himself as the one. He knew he wasn't the Messiah, but he was the one that makes straight the way for the Messiah. So he saw himself or understood his role to be that he was preparing the one for the Messiah. Um, Now, let me give my best guess at this because this is what it is. It's a guess. But based off of my understanding of the Gospels, if you read the Gospels, just read in Matthew, but you can see that there is a point in time where Jesus is preaching, repent for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And then that ministry goes up until toward the end. And then that ministry changes. His message is then, I am going to die. I'm going to be crucified and I'll rise again on the third day. Right. And so that's where the shift begins. And his ministry starts off very public. And then when that shift happens to talking about his death, burial, and resurrection and what was going to come after the church that he was going to build, Matthew 16, his ministry at that point is just his disciples and a small group of people that stuck with him, right? And they're following him. Now, they didn't understand what was going to happen, right? You see in Matthew 16 that when Jesus tells them at the end of the chapter there that he is going to be crucified or that he's going to die, but he'll rise again on the third day, Peter's like, no, 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 we're never going to let that happen. And Jesus is like, looks at him straight in the face and says, get behind me, Satan, because that's something Satan would say because he doesn't understand what's happening. And even after the resurrection, and even right before Christ descended there in Acts chapter 1, his disciples were asking him, are you now going to restore the kingdom? Because they're thinking like right now he's going to restore the kingdom to the nation of Israel. We're going to be the head of all nations. Um, just like it talks about in Isaiah chapter 2 and 11. But he wasn't telling them never to study prophecy, never to think about it or whatever. He's saying, for you, speaking to them specifically, there in the first century, that generation, you go out and share the gospels, make disciples of all nations, etc., from Judea, Samaria, and beyond. And then the angels, as soon as he ascends up, the angels are like, "Why are you guys still standing here?" They're still standing there, looking, waiting. Don't you know that the Christ is going to come in the same manner in which he departed, right? So they go about their way, and now they have this newfound understanding because the Holy Spirit's beginning to show them and reveal to them the truth of what Jesus had been telling them. So I don't think they understood. The disciples didn't understand, and I especially think that John the Baptist didn't understand up until the very end when he's talking about that he was a friend of the bridegroom. He wasn't with the bride, and he wasn't the groom himself either. He was just a friend of the bridegroom. He understood his role at the end of like where he was supposed to be in all this. But that's why he asked the question, like, "Are you the one? Are you the Messiah?" When he's in jail, right before his own death. And Jesus says, "Hey, tell him that the blind or see and the lame walk," and basically quoting Isaiah back to him, saying, "Yeah, I am the one." So that's a good question. I do think that you had that transition time between what Christ taught and what they had understood up until that point with baptism. Like when in Acts, they're like, "Whose baptism are you baptized with? John the Baptist?" And or I forget the exact quote of that passage, but they're asking Paul that, "Whose baptism are you baptized with?" And so then he begins to explain to them like that. Well, that doesn't matter. The water doesn't matter. Being baptized by the Holy Spirit is what matters. That's what matters. So,
Yep.
do you have anything you want to add
Yeah, yeah.
or
I
correct
can
me
add
on?
on. I think I can add on a little bit to that. So baptism during that day wasn't necessarily an uncommon occurrence. Pagans even baptized people. Baptizing is just a form, is just a word for people to identify with, right? And that's what we do when we get baptized. We're identifying with the Christian faith. We're identifying that we've accepted Jesus as our Lord and Savior. So, and you see pagan baptisms all the time, whenever they're just initiating their people into these cults. They get baptized in blood, they get baptized in water, whatever it may be. Well, the same was going on during that day. So John was baptizing these, was identifying them as part of, John's following, I guess you would say it.
Yeah.
Now, the baptism that they were being baptized in, John's baptism, that baptism of water, identifying them as John's followers, was not saving them, was not providing them with salvation through any means. That salvation only comes through Jesus Christ. Now, they were just being identified through John's baptism as being a follower of John, just as these other pagan groups, they were baptizing people to identify them within their pagan roots. So that's at least in my studies, that's what I've come up with, and that's what I got. So
Oh, good. Okay, this is from I think this is from Straight Up. Question: Will you please tell us more as to why you believe Trump to be the last president and what you think will come after his presidency? Well, this is just for me, and Joe, I'll give you a chance to respond as well. But so a couple of years ago, probably during his first term, I wrote about Trump being the last Trump, right? And I know that's from the King James English, but being that that's the most authoritative English translation we have, it seems, I don't know, divinely ironic or something that that phrase is in there like that, that he's the last Trump. And then we have a president named Trump, that it just so happens to be president right at the same time when we're coming up on the 2000th anniversary of Christ's death, burial, and resurrection. And not just that, but he's not just some ordinary politician like Carter or Bush or any of those guys. He is completely different. He broke the mold on pretty much everything, and then he's endured 9 years of intense persecution against him, his family, his friends. His friends have been thrown in jail for just frivolous stuff. He's been attacked mercilessly by the media nonstop. He's had what, three investigations again, or four, 4 or 5 investigations against him from every intelligence agency on the planet. Everybody's looking for some kind of dirt to have on him. And then on top of that, he's had 2 assassination attempts on him. I mean, he is unlike any politician we've ever had. And he's iconic. I mean, he's just as iconic in my mind as Abraham Lincoln or George Washington or FDR or Teddy Roosevelt or Churchill or MLK or JFK. He is if life were just going to go on like normal, there wasn't a rapture, no second coming, whatever, and life was just going to go on for another 200, 300, 400, 1,000 years, he would be one of the most recognizable historical figures that people in the future would look back on. You know what I mean? Like he's just like that iconic, and that's what I mean by iconic. So, um, years after his first administration, Tyler and I did a video called "The Final Four," and that wasn't based on Trump. That wasn't based on license plates or a number I happened to dream about. This was just using scripture and kind of figuring out where we were on God's timeline. And if you were to hold 2033 as the year of the second coming, and it may not be the year of the second coming. I mean, 2033 may be the midpoint. I mean, we don't know. It may be the start of it. We just don't know right now. But 2033 factors in there somehow, some way. I don't think that this 2000th anniversary is going to just come and go without any kind of anything. I mean, history shows that from Adam to Abraham was 2,000 years, Abraham to Christ's first coming, 2,000 years. And it stands to reason that it would be right around this next 2,000 years because that fits in with the creation week model, etc. So it's possible that there may be another president if Trump something happens where he's not able to finish out his first term, or it would be right around the 2028 timeframe, right at the changing. But I think something happens before he changes out. He is he's not your normal politician. He is not your normal. I mean, you got every politician in the world, with the exception of like Netanyahu or a few people that respected him in his first term. And then after everything he's gone through, man, they are all bending the knee to this guy. They are all of them bending the knee. I would even say Putin has been in the knee to a degree, and Mao and everybody else. So not Mao, Xi Jinping. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because I feel like I'm sort of biased in that, but I feel like he is the last president that we're going to have before the rapture.
Well, I mean, of course, we're not going to agree on everything, right?
Right.
So I don't look at it that way, but I can just say that I hope that he's our last president. I'm I pray for the rapture every day. I'm looking forward to the Lord's coming. So yeah, that's really all I got to say on that. I pray that he's our last president because I'm ready to get out of here.
Yeah. And you know what, man, I encourage people to disagree with me on my channel. Like I don't want to if I like it when people have different opinions because it gives me something to think about too. Like I'm thinking, well, I never thought about it that way. That's always a way that I like to view any kind of opinion that's not my own, is to consider what that person's saying and then, weigh it against what I know. And a lot of times I find out, well, man, that seems to be pretty spot on. So
Well, I mean,
I don't
and,
know.
and
I think he's the last guy. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, and he very well could. I don't look at it like that in scripture, but I will say that I do believe in a 6,000 year um, time frame, right? 7,000 years completion. We know we got 1,000 years with the millennial kingdom, so I believe there's only 6,000 years of human history, aside from the millennial kingdom. So I mean we're coming up on it. Um, so I know the different, and he's big into the calendars and doing studies like that. I haven't dove too deep into that. I know Randy Nettles, he writes on your website. He's big into doing those calculations and writing on that. But I mean, we're coming up. We're coming up on 6,000. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you though. With the whole the 2,000 to 2,000 to 2,000. we're definitely coming up on it, and something's going to happen soon. And I don't even like to use that word soon. Something's going to happen at any minute. I mean, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, 2033, whatever, whenever it is, um, I'm looking forward to it.
Speaking of Randy, he's got a new article coming out tomorrow that I'm going to post. But of that day and hour, no one knows. Part one. So look, I haven't read it yet. I just uploaded it to the website, and I'm looking forward to reading that. And then John's got an article coming out tomorrow. I'll probably do his Friday, the Ark and the Beast, or the building of the Ark and the Beast. So two really good articles coming out on the Rev 310 website. Okay,
Yes, sir.
let's see here. So hopefully straight up, or yeah, straight up, if that's your name. Hopefully that was answering your question as directly as I could answer it. From David Jack, question: has the big tax levy against Canada and Mexico stemmed the flow of drugs? The big tax levy has not stemmed the flow that I know of. I don't know. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not. I mean, it doesn't appear that it's extended a flow of drugs at the moment. I haven't seen anything on that.
The big beautiful wall, though, is definitely stemming the tide of all manner of foot traffic across the border. So, and I think they were going to. I, s- I saw in the news that Kristi Noem was down on the border, and you have the wall. The wall is like these big metal uh not spikes, but like planks driven in, and they have like kind of the sharp tops or whatever. They're gonna paint it black, and I was like, why are they painting it black? And then she explained it that it makes the wall like incredibly hot. You can't even touch it during the day because it's the sun.
Mm,
So I thought, man, the next thing you know, they're going to be digging a moat with throwing alligators or whatever in there too, just to kind of match what they're doing in Florida. But yeah, I don't know anything about the tax levies stopping the flow of drugs, but I know that
mm,
shutting the border down has certainly put a crimp on that.
yeah.
Abel Gurma, question: Three Eye Atlas, one of the signs in the sky in Revelations. In Revelation, I don't think it's one of the signs in the sky. I think it may because so I am by no means the expert in interstellar objects, but I've read enough over the last couple of weeks to get a basic understanding. So each of the interstellar, in fact, this is what I'm talking about in my conference. The one of the conference presentations is going to be on Three Eye Atlas, but the way I understand it is that up until 2017, we had our normal comets that were within our solar system, like Halley's Comet and Swift-Tuttle and a couple of other ones. But and that's where a lot of the comets and stuff, when we go through the year, we have the different meteor showers, like the Perseid and I can't remember all the different names of the meteor showers, but we pass through some of those, and those are largely, I think, from comets that we pass through the tails of the comets. Like Swift-Tuttle is a massive comet that the Perseids and some other meteor shower, depending on the time of year, that the Earth it goes through the tail of that, and that's why we're getting those showers that we do. But there's a bunch of different kinds. There's probably like 10 different kinds of meteor showers out there that happen throughout the year. Um, and so we're used to that. We're used to the stuff that's inside of our solar system, but then we get that Oumuamua that comes from outside of the solar system. And the first time we're able to track something from outside of our solar system, and it had its own set of unique things that made it was like a kind of like a cigar shaped. It kind of looked like a spacecraft. It was weird, but long, elongated. I don't remember the exact size of it, but it passed and went. And then Borisov came in, and it was completely different. It looked like a comet, but it gave off so much. I mean, so all three of these are going to be different, but it gave off so much of its. I forget the term for it, but as they get close to the sun, they start to burn off a lot of the stuff, and that's where the show and the tail and all that kind of stuff comes from. Um, but a very very bright comet. and then Three Eye Atlas. And the reason they call it Eye, like Borisov is Two Eye or Two Eye Borisov, and then One Eye Oumuamua. It just the eye is interstellar, so it's coming from outside of our solar system. And this one is coming in at like 130,000 miles per hour, or it travels like 37 miles in a second, right? I forget the exact correlation, but it's coming in screaming, and it's already by Jupiter right now. And what's unique about this one is the plane. So if you think about like a square, right? A cube that's full on the inside, and that's our universe. And you're talking trillions of light years. I mean, Matt, it would take millions of years to cross even our solar system, I think, or not our solar system, but like, between our solar system and like the asteroid belt or Jupiter or something. It's like a crazy long time that it has to pass because of the distance. And this thing is coming in at just the right angle. I mean, it's coming almost shallow to the ecliptic plane that our solar system rotates on. So we're rotating around like this, and you're thinking about this cube, right? I mean, you could come in the odds of it coming in at exactly level with like a sheet of paper that's just floating in the wind, right? So you got a sheet of paper floating from a plane thousands of feet up, and this thing kind of lands right across it and skims it. That's like the same chance of this asteroid doing exactly that. And it comes in right at the right angle that it's going to do a flyby of Jupiter, Mars, and then it passes the sun at perihelion right as the Earth is the furthest from it. And we're also, when we would have the best picture of it, we can't see it because the sun's blocking it. So now it goes by Mars, Venus, it goes around the sun. And by that point, we're already moving away from it. So we have no real good, clear shot at it to look at it. But it seems interesting to me that these things are now starting to come with regularity, frequency. And how easy would that be if Satan were to simply turn this thing or do something with it that indicates some kind of intelligence, and then the world could say, "Oh, that was the rapture. That was or that's where all these people went. It wasn't the rapture. They got snatched up by whatever these cosmic aliens or whatever." So feel free to disagree with me on this one.
I mean, I'm not an astrophysicist by any means, but I don't. It's the sign of revelation in Revelation, but like we were talking before we went on air, I definitely think that it's very interesting. I'll say the least. I mean, it's it seems like every few days there's something in the news about it. There's a new light emanating from it. Something's just something about it, right? So what is it? I don't know. I mean, is it just a rock that's coming at us, or is it an actual um, intelligent? You know, I don't know. We'll just have to see whenever that time comes. When is it supposed to be here?
The closest it comes to Earth is, I want to say, between October and November. So I don't know that we won't be able to see with the naked eye, but it'll have to be seen through a telescope. But it'll constantly be at the worst angle for us, yet it's going to be doing these really close flybys to Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. Now, here's something to consider too, though. Let's just and Avi Loeb, who is the Harvard astrophysicist, I think is who's brought attention to this, and all he's saying is like, look, we don't know if it's a spaceship or not, alien spaceship, and we don't know if it's a comet. We don't know what it is at all yet. We don't really know a lot about it. It seems to be giving off these weird things that other comets don't do, so it doesn't act like a normal comet. A normal comet, as it's going through space, especially as it's coming, towards the sun or whatever, a large star, it has the tail that goes out behind it. But in this case, the tail is going in front of it as it's going forward, and then it's starting to give off lights, some kind of artificial lights, and they think it's incredibly massive, like way bigger than what we thought it was. They thought initially that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 kilometers long and wide or whatever, but now they're thinking that it's probably more like 28 to 30 miles wide or big. So my thought is, even if this thing is not an alien entity of any kind or have no intelligence whatsoever, it is going to pass through the asteroid belt to get close as it comes into the inner planets. And I think the asteroid belt used to be a fifth inner planet that was probably destroyed at some point shortly after creation or when Satan fell or whatever. I don't know all that, but it seems to be the remnants of another planet. But as that thing passes through the asteroid belt, if that thing starts hitting other asteroids and like a pool ball, the cue ball as it hits the racked balls there, and those balls just scatter. I mean, I see this thing coming through the asteroid belt and other things hitting it and either being destroyed or if they're big enough, they'll ricochet and be sent off in all kinds of directions, right? So there's a possibility that that thing shatters those asteroids into a million different directions, and that could impact the Earth. It could hit Mars, and if it hits Mars, think about everything that Elon Musk is doing right now. Like all of his companies are geared toward putting people on Mars. Whether you're talking about the Tesla truck, Neuralink, SpaceLink, SpaceX, the AIX or whatever it is, the robots, all of that stuff is designed to get robots off planet, control them, have them build a colony or something on the moon, and then from the moon, use the moon as a launching base to get to Mars. Well, if Mars is destroyed, and that's the only other inhabitable planet that we could even possibly go to, then that means that their escape route is cut off. Now, what is Elon Musk going to do? What is all these guys that are banking on getting off the planet? Now, really, they're focused left with just the moon. So that's really we can't get to Jupiter. It's a gas planet anyways. All the other planets are gas planets, gas giants, and we couldn't even live on them if we wanted to under any kind of conditions. So Mars was really it. That and the moon. So I it could take out Mars, it could take out the moon or damage the moon in such a way that it messes up our tidal systems going forward. So there's a lot of stuff that could happen with this asteroid as it's coming in, and it doesn't have to be aliens for it to be catastrophic. So I mean, there's a lot of different bad things that can happen.
Yeah. Have
Thank you, Abel.
yeah,
Good.
I see where Aldo he mentioned Jason Lyle. Have you ever heard of Jason Lyle? He uh he has a
Mhm.
website, Biblical Science Institute, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He speaks at a lot of homeschool conferences that I go to. But he's a genius when it comes to this type of of this topic. But I think he's an astronomer, if I'm not mistaken. He's written several books. I'd be interested to see if he's written on it. I mean, Aldo mentioned something in that in the chat, so I don't know if he's put something out there. But if he's put something out there on this, I'd be
Yeah.
very interested on his take.
Yeah. Yeah. If you see something from him, definitely shoot me a message and I'll link it to here.
Yeah.
Okay. Kathy asked, is it likely that the rapture could be on the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah this September? So apparently there's a guy, I watched part of his video. He's from Africa. He's a pastor named Joshua or a teacher, preacher, something named Joshua, who's pretty adamant that it's going to happen this September 23rd. You know me, if you watch my channel for any more than a few times, that I've always not believed that the rapture would happen on a feast date, because I thought that was specific to Israel. I thought possibly it could be Tish B'Av because that would point Israel to what happened. So that was always my strongest kind of candidate. My second candidate would be Pentecost, but again, Christ ascended 10 days prior to Pentecost, so he wasn't actually doing it on a feast date. So it was in between feast dates. So I don't think he's coming on a feast date. And the fact that this guy's calling out the day as it's going to happen, I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen that day. So um, now the whole thing with the no man knows the day or the hour, I know that that's a lot of times people attribute that to the Feast of Trumpets because of the way that it starts. You have the sighting of the new moon, you have to have two witnesses, etc. I don't again, I don't ascribe that to the rapture. I think the rapture was a mystery. We were the kingdom in mystery form. I don't think if since Christ did not ascend on Pentecost, but he ascended 10 days prior to it on a non-feast date, I think that our departure out of here will likely be that way too. Like we won't go up on a feast date, but it may be significant to Israel in some other way, shape, or form. But you got to remember when the church is removed off the earth, I mean, his focus is going back to the nation of Israel, according to Ezekiel 38 and other passages. So his focus is now back on Israel and finishing that last 70th week. So I don't think the church has to be raptured on a feast date, but I think everything that's going to happen to Israel going forward into the future is going to happen on a feast date. Like that, those have to happen, like the abomination of desolation, the second coming, the tabernacles, the initiation of the kingdom, etc. And I don't know that I'm just saying that the abomination will happen on a day that's significant to Israel, maybe on their Passover or something during the midpoint time period. But what do you think on that?
Yeah, so I'm not a rapture date setter either. I don't hold any significance to September 23rd, 24th as being a rapture date. Um, I'm with you. I don't even look at the feast days as being significant to the rapture. Like I believe that those are reserved for Israel. Um, I believe that the no one knows the day or the hour context in Matthew 24. That's not in reference to the. Um, I believe Matthew 24 is just a. I believe it's for the Jews. And what I mean by when I believe it's for the Jews, I believe when Jesus is given the Olivet Discourse there, he's given them the time period in which he's talking about, and he gives a time marker there, and the time marker that he gives is the abomination of desolation. And we know when the abomination of desolation is going to occur, and that's going to occur, at the halfway point of the tribulation period. So I don't believe that the rapture is found in Matthew 24. I don't believe in the Matthew 24 is the fig tree. I don't believe in the fig tree generation. Um, I just believe that um, the rapture is imminent and it can happen at any moment.
Hmm. Okay, from Deanna Sutherland, question: has Israel called in 120,000 reserves to be put in place by September 2nd? I haven't heard that, but I know that they were wanting to finish operations in Gaza or with Gaza City, and I know that they had called up reserves, but I don't know how many they called up or if that's some final push. But I know right now, like Hezbollah is in the process. I think the government there in Lebanon is dismantling Hezbollah, whatever's left of it, or taking power from them, taking their weapons from them. Syria's in kind of a mess too because that new leader in Syria is basically he's confined in a small territory. On the south, he's got the Druze and he's got Christians that are now being supported and protected by Israel. In the north, he's got the Kurds and all the different factions within the Kurds who are very hostile to him. And he's got Turkey to his west, and then he's got Iraq to his right. So, um, at least from his north and the south, he's being kind of squished, pressured, and he's only going to be able to go left or right. So I don't know what kind of threat he poses beyond, whatever's there local. So it seems to me that they may be pushing in this reserves to finish operations in Gaza once and for all. But again, I think that if the UN does vote to recognize a Palestinian state, that immediately that Israel is going to also vote and they're going to annex Judea and Samaria. And let's see which one gains the most traction first. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Okay. Oh, I see you. Okay. Well, hey, if you need to punch out, man, you can.
Yeah, I got the
I'll,
wife.
I'll finish up.
She sent me a message. Something's going on with these kids. Um, so I guess I need to go take care of that.
Hey
So
man, I've been there, done that. So do what you handle your business. Hey, I've had you on tonight, and it's been too long. We'll have to do it again sooner. But any closing thoughts from you? Words, comments?
oh, like I said, I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I've been super busy. Appreciate the chat and the questions. Good conversation. I'll be back on soon. Like I said, if anybody wants to find out anything about me, just go to prophecyrecon.com. I do a lot of articles. I don't do many videos. Um, as you could tell, why I don't do many videos. I'm not the best video person right now, but I'll get there. Right, the more I'm in front of it, it's just weird looking at a camera or looking down at you or whatever I'm doing. But yeah, just you could check out any of my articles over there at com or go to the Substack. And I know a lot of people they don't like get on the Substack because they feel like they have to pay, but you don't have to pay for any of my stuff. It does prompt you to sign up for a paid subscription, but if you just click on free, you'll get all the articles and you'll get all of the information there. And I'm more active on the Substack than I am anywhere else.
Yeah, I know you guys, you and Britt have been trying to get me into Substack, and I just have not had the bandwidth uh, to put out any quality writing. I'm just really doing the conference stuff right now. So thanks for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you. Hopefully I'll see you on here before any of the conferences, but if not, I'll nothing else. I'll see you in October
Yeah,
in
sounds good.
Oklahoma.
We'll be
Maybe
talking to
my beard will be grown in as much as yours will be. I'm kind of got beard envy right now.
you. I usually grow it out a little bit longer, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's getting gray. Like
I
my
know.
mom.
Well, I'm trying to get. I want to get my goatee like yours, your length like that there, but the sides, it's so silver that it doesn't look like from this angle. It doesn't look like I even have a beard. And then I turn my face, and they're like, "Oh, you can see it. It's kind of scraggly." But I just like, ah,
Yeah, I mean, I know I look older than what I am, but my mom she had white hair by the time she was 25, and here I am 38, and I mean I've already got all the white hair girl coming in, so it's pretty funny. I got her genes big time. So, but yeah, look, I appreciate you. I guess like I said, I'm gonna go take care of that because you know how
yeah,
it is, family life. So,
I got you. Thanks for
oh
being
yeah,
on, brother.
oh yeah, have a good one.
All right, all right. It's just me now. You're just stuck with me. Okay. Aldo asks, question. Uh, I guess this is part one. Pete, Russia has some device that started a few years ago called a satellite inspector that has flown up close to our own satellites and has fired projectiles near them but not at them. Part two, but very close, or not at them, but very close, and has satellite destroying capabilities that could also end satellites, don't you think? Yeah, I think that's part and parcel why Trump created Space Force or Space Command or whatever as a domain. So again, for the military, I know everybody laughed at Trump when he did this, but like the reason the US military is able to dominate is because we master the domain of whatever we're trying to dominate. So if we want to control the oceans, we have to master the ability to traverse the oceans and to control it and to understand it and to weaponize it and to be able to that's how we went from battleships to now these aircraft carriers. We don't even get our ships close enough to fire their cannons. We don't need to. We can stay off 20 miles off the coast of a country and launch ships that can do that or planes. So the more stuff we put into space, the more possibility that our enemies would take advantage of that. And it's a huge Achilles heel, for us because again, so much of our economy runs on satellites. So if Russia so wanted and they had weaponized their satellites to do such a thing, they could take out all of our satellites or they could take out the strategic ones. I mean, that's really what he was creating that for, was to protect the satellites and our own intelligence assets that are up at atmosphere, outside of the atmosphere. Russia could use us. I don't think they'd use it before the rapture, but I think it's absolutely a very strong possibility, like 80% that they would use it right after the rapture, right at our weakest point. They just go ahead and take our knees out while we're down. From James Green, question: do you think they collected the ashes from the trial run of the red heifer? Absolutely. I believe that. I think that was probably a real red heifer, and it was really ready, perfect, ready to go. And now they have those ashes just in case they need it. This isn't in the questions, but I just saw it from that. Panther Gal, do you take creatine for lifting weights? I feel like I should be. I have taken creatine, and I haven't taken it here recently, but yeah, creatine's good for a lot of things, but it's also good for your brain, surprisingly. I don't know, it's got a lot of good benefits for your brains or what do they call it? Neutronics or whatever qualities to it. But basically, it helps your body. I don't want to say retain water, but it retains water in your muscles, so your muscles look fuller, if that makes sense. So I haven't. I use it so sporadically that I don't know that it does any good for me. I just eat protein. I just massive amounts of protein. Okay, from Pam Lester, question: how do you think the world would differ today if we had been taught the whole Bible? Well, I think that the whole world's had the whole Bible. It's just they don't choose to believe it. Especially within the church. You've got most of your Christian denominations deny um, either parts or large sections of the Bible that they just don't agree with. From their denominational standpoint or from their hermeneutical standpoint. They might be very conservative. They might be very liberal. And by liberal, they just don't accept the Bible for what it says. So I think the world would be profoundly different if people understood. I mean, think about it. We wouldn't have the Roman Catholic Church. We wouldn't need the Roman Catholic Church because they think they're the kingdom, and we know that they are not the kingdom, but Christ is the one that brings in the kingdom. So I don't know. This world would be vastly different if I would just say if the world if the church, the professing church, just took the Bible seriously, the world would be vastly different. Um, you wouldn't have all these people out there right now spending millions of dollars and all their time and energy trying to build a kingdom up here and now just to abandon it at the rapture and hand it over to the Antichrist. So that's one thing. So good question, Pam. I like that question. Okay, so this is question 14. I think this is the last one, right? Or I don't know. It's the last one I see. From Tom, what do you think happens to the person who takes the mark that makes it impossible for them to be redeemed? Spiritual, genetic, affecting the soul? Uh, yeah, I've for a long time I've thought, it's a cyber physical system, a cyber physical biometric system that somehow is connects the mind to the system that the world's going to operate under. Now, I'm assuming that the system that the Antichrist is going to use is going to be some form of quantum internet. It's going to be the most powerful, the fastest internet the world's ever seen because he is going to make sure that anywhere that this Antichrist and the false prophet go, they're able to project this power wherever they go. So it's probably going to be some type of a quantum based internet, and the Japanese have already developed this quantum internet. I don't know to how far, but I know that they have. And then somehow that technology is going to it, we think about what First Thessalonians 5:23 says, that a man is made of body, soul, and spirit. The body obviously is the physical component, and that's feeds your mind. It feeds your soul, which is the seat of a man. It feeds your soul with the five senses, right? What you see, hear, taste, touch, smell. and that goes into our brain and we begin to process that information. Well, if this thing has control of the mind, then they are unable to come to that conclusion. And whatever this technology is, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we can look at what technology is driving at today. And the governments of the world, and have for a long time, been trying to figure out ways to control their populations. They tried it through drugs in the 60s and 70s with all this MK Ultra and all of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll peace hippie movements that were largely CIA fund, efforts to discredit the anti-war movement. You had the introduction of Eastern mysticism and New Ageism into pop culture, into music and books and TV and everything else. Um, all you know, all of these things are designed to ensnare us, ensnare our minds, in order to prevent us from coming to the knowledge of the truth, which is that there is only one way to be saved, and that's through Jesus Christ, and that there's only one creator, and that's God, and that there's only one ending to this world, and that's the way the Bible describes it. And Satan is doing whatever he can to prevent, especially the people in that time, in the time of the 70th week, from ever even being able physically to come to that conclusion. So I don't. I think I've kind of moved away from it being simply genetic to being something that impacts the mind. And this right here, and I've used this in presentations before, but this is the greatest battlefield in the entire universe. What's in between here? Think about it in your own life. I mean, Satan is constantly attacking what you think, how you think. Your friends, Satan influences humans to convince people to think about a certain way. He uses propaganda, he uses marketing, he uses schemes, lies, deceit, everything. It's all designed to prevent you from coming to know Jesus Christ as Lord. So whatever the mark is, it prevents that. It prevents you from ever being able to even come to that conclusion. And as I talked about before, this is your prefrontal cortex. It is responsible for all the critical thinking that you do in your life as an adult. And if somehow there's a technology that they're perfecting now through like Synchron or Neuralink, and they're going to be able, and not just those technologies, but through frequencies, radio frequencies, cell phone frequencies. Think about all the stuff floating around us right now in the air that is impacting us in ways that we don't even understand. And kind of the best way you could think about it is, and I don't know if you remember the Kmart's. I don't know who here remembers Kmart's, but I remember in Kmart's and in a lot of department stores, um, where you're shopping and kind of out of the blue, you start humming a song. You're like, and then you start to think about it after a few minutes. Why am I humming this song? And if you go somewhere where it's really quiet, you can hear the music kind of piping in the background. And that's that same type of deceit that Satan is tacitly using now, but will aggressively use on the other side of the rapture once the restrainer is removed, is this ability to influence people, even if it's as subtle as you're in a car with somebody and you feel like you should share the gospel, but you don't. From something as subtle as that, where you're something is causing you to hold back, to as aggressive as the image of the beast coming to life, and maybe it's in a holographic form or some type of AI system, robot, whatever. I mean, it's a scale, right? A spectrum of how much uh, satanic influence is being foisted upon us, right? At any given time. Right now, it's increasing, right? Because the less Christian a nation becomes, and I know that nations can't be Christians, but in terms of like the Judeo-Christian ethos and morality and churches and the spirit of the general population being largely born again, or not largely, but at least Christian veneer, right? To go into a country that has no churches, no Christians at all, you can tell that there's a huge spiritual difference. There's a huge spiritual weight between this country and this country. And I've been in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Afghanistan. I can tell you those countries are very spiritually oppressive. Like you feel the weight on you. Like it is not a good feeling. But that is all the questions. So first of all, thank you moderators for grabbing those. Thank you for everybody that asked a question tonight. Hopefully I answered your question uh, accordingly and something that helps you out. Some of the questions like the bottle with Jesus tears, I have I have no idea. I say save that for Tom Hughes or Kurt Reed or Gary or one of the ordained pastors. So I am not ordained. Kmart sucks. Oh, I used to love Kmart, but anyways. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you for hanging out tonight. It's always good to seeing you, seeing the familiar faces in the chat. If I didn't say hi to you earlier, I apologize. I do see you. I've got the chat going on the side here, but I catch bits and pieces of it. And so, like I said, I'll be on Sunday with Pastor Jason and the church there on probably 2 to 3 on Sundays. I think is that when it is? I'm not entirely sure because I'm Eastern time, so I don't know when it is Mountain time for them. I guess 12 or so. Yeah, Deanna, there's there's some very dark corners of this world. Um, and it goes back to Daniel, right? When you read Daniel and he's praying and the angel Gabriel's coming to him, but he gets delayed by the prince of Persia, and then after the prince of Persia there'll be another prince of Grecia, and so these are fallen angelic entities that are waging warfares at various levels. And like each of us, you think about there's probably easily 10,000 demonic entities assigned to each of us, which is not a very happy thought. But thank God our God is mighty and powerful, and it doesn't matter if it's a million eight demons, they can't even stand the name of Jesus, and they flee at his name. So, anyways, yeah, thank you guys for tonight, and hopefully the conversation was good, and that you guys got something out of it, at least from what's going on in the West here with Trump and his policies and stuff, and where all this is going. Nothing super coherent in terms. I just kind of see things in trends, and I think that this is in large part to establish Republican or his form of Republican government forever, which is good, right? That's the way kind of it was intended to be in a way that the founders wanted this country to be free, but because wicked people do wicked things, that causes law enforcement to armor up, and that causes kind of this escalation of things that we've seen now, where we're kind of forced to trade um, liberty for security. And you can't say that I'm anti federalizing the police force when it stops all the murder almost overnight and carjackings and everything else. You're like, that's pretty nice. So, anyways, guys, thank you. Love you very much. If I don't see you at the conferences, if I do see you, please come up and talk to me. I'm very approachable. And then if I don't see you at the conferences, please stay in touch. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Telegram. So plenty of ways to reach out to me. If I can't respond to every email, I apologize up front. I just don't have the bandwidth, but I do read them. So thank you very much for the stuff you guys do send, and God bless you. And hopefully it's just. I mean, you know what? I hope it's this September. I hope this guy's right. We're not going to know he's a false prophet until that day comes and goes. But I personally don't see that the requirement for the rapture to happen on a feast date. because Jesus didn't ascend on a feast date. Ergo, he's the head, we're the body. I just don't know that it's going to be on the same date, but I could be wrong too. So thank you guys. God bless you. And Maranatha, we'll talk to you soon.